Look around you for a moment. Every road, bridge, skyline, nation, and map feels permanent, yet almost everything humans built belongs to the tiniest fraction of our existence. For more than 99% of human history, there were no cities, kingdoms, farms, roads, temples, borders, or governments. Still, humanity survived. How did our ancestors endure a planet ruled entirely by nature? Answer begins before civilization, before history, before memory itself. Imagine standing on an endless plain at sunrise. No smoke rises from distant villages. No towers break the horizon. Rivers carve their own paths. Forests stretch beyond sight. Mountains remain untouched. The wind carries only birdsong, insects, and the footsteps of wandering people. Those people possess almost nothing. Stone tools, wooden spears, animal hides, and carefully protected fire are all they carry. Everything else belongs to the landscape around them. They own no fields because farming has not been invented. They claim no kingdoms because borders do not exist. Home is never a fixed place. Home is wherever food, fresh water, and safety can be found before the seasons change again. Life here is breathtaking, but it is never easy. Mammoths cross frozen grasslands, bison thunder across open valleys, lions, wolves, and hyena compete for every opportunity to hunt. Sudden storms flood rivers. Long droughts dry entire regions. Every sunrise brings another test, and every sunset is earned. Compared with these powerful animals, humans seem remarkably fragile. They have no claws, no thick fur, no crushing jaws, and no extraordinary speed. By every obvious measure, they should lose nature's relentless contest, yet they refuse to disappear. Somewhere within these small wandering groups lies an invisible strength that no predator possesses. It is not a sharper weapon or stronger body. It is something far more remarkable, something that will eventually transform scattered survivors into the builders of civilizations. Before cities could rise, humanity first had to master survival itself. Over the next few minutes, we will follow footprints instead of monuments, campfires instead of palaces, and shared courage instead of royal power. By the time this journey ends, the first chapter of civilization will no longer begin with cities. It will begin with people. Every morning began with a question that shaped every human life. Where will today's food come from? There were no fields waiting for harvest. No marketplaces, no barns filled with grain. Survival depended entirely on movement, observation, and cooperation. Small bands of hunter-gatherers traveled together, usually numbering between 20 and 40 people. Children learned to walk, while camps constantly changed. Elders carried priceless memories of rivers, seasons, animals, and safe pathways. Experience, not wealth, determined leadership. When herds migrated, families followed. When drought emptied watering holes, they searched elsewhere. When fruit ripened beyond distant hills, everyone packed their few possessions and continued walking. Nature created the calendar, and the stars became trusted guides. Nothing about these journeys was random. Every route preserved knowledge gathered across countless generations. Hunters recognized fresh tracks pressed into soft earth. Gatherers remembered where edible plants returned after seasonal rains. Parents taught children which berries nourished the body and which concealed deadly poison. Around evening campfires, stories became living libraries, passing practical wisdom from one generation to the next without a single written word. Simple stone tools reflected extraordinary skill. Carefully shaped hand axes, razor-sharp flakes, wooden spears hardened by fire, and woven, carrying slings represented centuries of experimentation. Creating them required patience, observation, and steady hands. Losing one during a journey meant losing valuable time and precious energy. Yet tools alone never guaranteed survival. One hunter could rarely overcome a massive animal, but an organized group could. Some distracted dangerous prey while others waited silently for the perfect opportunity. Success belonged to coordination rather than individual strength. After every successful hunt, food was shared throughout the community. Children, elders, injured companions, and unsuccessful hunters all received their portion. Sharing reduced risk because tomorrow's provider might become tomorrow's dependent. In this unforgiving world, generosity was not weakness. It was humanity's greatest survival strategy, preparing our ancestors for an even greater transformation. But even the most experienced group could never control nature. Sudden storm might flood a valley. An injured hunter could slow everyone. Winter sometimes arrived early, forcing entire communities to adapt. Each challenge strengthened cooperation, resilience, and trust, quietly preparing humanity for the remarkable discoveries that would eventually reshape the world forever. Beginning with an invisible invention called language. For thousands of generations, humans survived because they learned something no other animal mastered completely. They could imagine. Together, sounds became shared meanings. Gestures turned into plans. Memories became stories. Around every campfire, knowledge traveled farther than any individual ever could. Language allowed hunters to describe places they could not currently see. Parents warned children about hidden dangers before they encountered them. Elders explained which valleys flooded after heavy rains and where animals returned each season. Information no longer disappeared when one person died. It remained inside the group. This invisible network of shared knowledge changed everything. Humans began planning tomorrow instead of reacting only today. Hunting parties coordinated across long distances. Families prepared for changing weather. Children inherited experience they had never lived themselves. Every generation started a little farther ahead than the last. Cooperation also strengthened trust. Caring for injured companions meant valuable experience stayed alive. Protecting children ensured future generations carried collective wisdom forward. Even during hardship, people discovered that helping others often increased everyone's chances of survival. Community became humanity's greatest technology. Archaeologists continue uncovering evidence of this remarkable behavior. Ancient campsites reveal organized hearths, carefully crafted tools, and the careful sharing of resources. Some skeletons show severe injuries that healed over many years, proving vulnerable individuals were protected instead of abandoned. Compassion was not merely an emotion. It became a practical advantage that helped entire communities endure. But the greatest mystery still remained. If humans had already developed cooperation, language, memory, and remarkable adaptability, why didn't civilization appear immediately? The answer was hidden inside the environment itself. For countless generations, constant movement remained the smartest strategy. Wild animals migrated. Water sources shifted. Seasons transformed entire landscapes. Staying in one place often meant starvation. Only when Earth's climate slowly became more stable after the last ice age would new possibilities emerge. Certain valleys offered dependable water. Wild grains returned year after year. Animals followed more predictable routes. Some families stayed a little longer, and history quietly prepared to change forever. That extraordinary turning point awaits our next chapter. There was still one final step before villages could become cities. Humans would learn to reshape nature. Instead of simply following it, everything that follows begins with that remarkable decision alone ahead. Together, the world that eventually produced cities did not change overnight. Civilization was not born in a single invention or one extraordinary moment. It emerged through thousands of small decisions, each building upon the knowledge earned across countless generations. As the climate warmed after the last ice age, glaciers retreated, rivers settled into more predictable courses, and fertile valleys became increasingly reliable. Some groups returned to the same places season after season. Temporary camps lasted longer. Families began recognizing familiar landscapes as dependable homes, even if they still traveled during part of the year. Nothing about this transition felt revolutionary at first. No one believed they were beginning a new chapter of human history. They simply adapted to changing conditions, just as their ancestors always had. Yet every season spent returning to the same valley strengthened a quiet idea. Perhaps survival no longer required endless movement. That possibility would eventually transform everything. One day, people would plant seeds instead of searching endlessly for wild grasses. They would protect animals instead of following migrating herds. Villages would appear. Then larger settlements. Then temples, marketplaces, written language, kingdoms, and the first great civilizations. But none of those achievements would have existed without the forgotten millions of years that came before them. Modern humanity often celebrates towering monuments, powerful empires, and remarkable inventions, yet the greatest triumph may have happened long before the first stone city ever rose from the earth. It happened when small groups of ordinary people learned to trust one another, share their resources, preserve knowledge, and face an unpredictable world together. Those invisible achievements became the true foundation beneath every civilization that followed. The next chapter of our journey asks an even greater question. If wandering had protected humanity for so long, what convinced our ancestors to settle down and permanently reshape the world around them? The answer will change the course of history forever. In the next episode, we uncover the remarkable turning point that carried humanity from survival towards civilization. Next time, we follow the surprising path that led our ancestors away from endless wandering toward permanent settlements. Along the way, every familiar idea about civilization's beginning will be challenged, revealing how patience, adaptation, curiosity, and cooperation quietly shaped humanity's extraordinary future together forever.